Samantha, welcome to the Always Better Than Yesterday podcast. So good to have you on.
Thank you so much for having me. So excited to be here.
I was umming and ahhing on whether I introduced you as the Hackney Hand Model or just Samantha, and I'm really looking forward to this chat.
Yeah. Thanks for that. Yeah, I am Samantha, but also known as Hackney Hand Model, especially in the mean streets of Hackney. So
what else are you known as?
So as well as being a hand model, I am a voiceover artist. I'm a presenter. I'm a radio host, and I've coined the term a mindset and winning expert. So that summarizes, I think, what I do. Yeah.
Talk to me about mindset and winning expert. What's that?
So I basically win everything. Like, I'm just that person that wins everything. Like, it started out on Instagram. Literally, when Instagram started, there was this competition to win a new coat. So I was like, oh, I need a new coat. Played along, ended up winning an Armani jacket, and like got to go to the shop, choose whatever one I wanted. And then from that moment, I was like, I can just apply for competitions and I'll just win them. So anyway, and then it started growing and growing to the point where like I won so many, like I would win food and wine and like nights out and like event things, and then a year's supply of vegan chicken nuggets. And then I won. That's the best one. And then I won my BBC radio show. And from that point, I was like, there's definitely something linking these. And I just wanted to go deeper and find out why I win all these things. Because I think that's the biggest question, isn't it? It's like, why? So if you go right under the surface, and I realized it was genuinely all to do with mindset. And if we release the blockages that we have to do with sort of like negative self-talk, then we can genuinely achieve anything and win mad stuff.
I love that. That's such a cool story. I want to dive into loads of different cool things that you've got on at the moment, but I just want to kind of acknowledge that I am an imposter when it comes to the voice space. Like I never set out to start a podcast. I just have my curious questions. So I'm going to be asking you loads of questions about like tips for podcasters, how to use your voice, maybe tips that you might have around asking questions. Where do you start? How did you get into radio?
So I started radio alongside training at drama school. I was just sort of like it was like a fun thing with my friend Nick, and we presented for Marlow FM. We had like a rhythm and blues show, and it was really silly because me and him met doing drama stuff. So we would do silly sort of improvisations on air, and we do like radio play stuff, and it was like really fun. But obviously, I never really thought about it as a career because I was like, I'm going to drama school. I'm an actress. Like, this is what I'm going to do, and that's just fun. And then sort of going through drama school and doing all the vocal training and things like that, they would always pick up on my voice, and everyone would be like, you've got a really good voice. You need to probably like work on this kind of thing. And I think it's from having that sort of exterior belief, and then you kind of going, oh yeah, to then sort of years later when I was like, oh God, I can make a profit from this. Great. Let's just add it to the thing. And then, and I think obviously drama school's trained me well in order to like sort of use my breath properly and sort of with diction and things like that. But really, I think vocal work really works when you're just engaging and like when you're really listening, and that sort of creates a really good sort of radio perspective. So I love listening. I love talking. I love sort of asking questions. And obviously, if my voice is quite nice to listen to, then it's going to help get the listenership in. So it all kind of seemed to work out well. And yeah, now I sort of present quite a lot on the radio, which is great.
Which radio?
So I work on Hoxton Radio, and I work for BBC Berkshire as well. And I do like little bits here and there on like Nettle Radio. And I've just got a new job with a brand new commercial station that I'm not allowed to talk about. But it's so exciting, that's starting in February. So yeah.
Awesome. What is it about voice? What is it about audio that you think it's so personal, isn't it? You know, your people are taking you with them throughout their day. What is it about voice that really captures you?
It's so funny, isn't it? Because I think voice can really hold people back. It's the first thing people say, isn't it? They're like, oh, I hate the sound of my own voice. Oh, I hate it when I hear myself back on, voice notes or whatever. But it's that ties into so many different things. Like, if we just forget the judgment of what people would ever think about us, and we become so authentic, your humor's coming through, your personability is coming through, your sort of knowledge and experiences are coming through, and people are relating to that. And so for me, using my voice, I kind of forget all the exterior work that I've done. I've done the work and that's all in there and that's great. And I know it sounds good. So whatever, cool. We'll leave it there. But the sort of outside view is that this isn't for me. Like, you know, you don't do these podcasts for yourself. You're doing it because you want to learn, but you want everyone else to learn as well. And I think that's so important. It's when you realize that what you do is for someone else to help someone, everything's forgotten because there's something greater than yourself. And I think that's so important.
You have guests on your show, you know, artists and the like. How do you keep calm under pressure?
It's really funny, actually. I thrive off pressure. So that's like my adrenaline. Like, I love it. There was one time in the studio when we triple booked these guests and all of a sudden people were just coming in and in and in. They were like, oh, I thought I was booked in today. And I was like, no, you were booked in for like next week, but come and sit down, let's have a chat. Like, and it was that I think I just genuinely, you sort of like level up, don't you? And you're like, right, let's go. It's fight or flight in that sense where you're just like, let's have the best time ever. And it kind of like, you've got to forget your worries and your problems and your questions. And I'm like researching who they are, like trying to be like, yeah, oh, and then you've done this. And like, it's so fun. And I think when you're having so much fun, they come across better. You're just having a great time. It sounds better to the listener. So I love being under pressure. I'm a very like last minute person. I will always leave things the last minute. I think it's for the kick, but also I just, get the thrill out of it.
And sometimes we don't really learn the lesson because when we wing it and we get through it, it doesn't really teach us not to do that ever again, right?
No, I know.
We don't. That's amazing. And you know, and I think I talk about doing what you love a lot, and I think a lot of that is to do with the pressure that we face. And you know, John Gordon, he's a leadership expert, and he talks about the coffee bean, and he says that hot water, it softens the carrot, it hardens the egg, but the coffee bean transforms the environment. So under that moment of stress, it brings out the best. And I think what you've just described there is that many people will go to mush in those situations. They would crawl under the desk and go, this is awful. But I love the fact that you just brings you to life. That's so cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I did loads of sort of research recently into introverts and extroverts and how, because those kind of phrases for me were always like, oh, introverts are shy, extroverts aren't. No, when you go deeper, it's where you get your energy from. And introverts get their energy from being on their own, but extroverts genuinely get more energy off interacting and socializing and getting it from different people. It's like a brain pathway thing. So once learning that about myself, I was like, oh, it just all makes sense now. Like, I'm not mad for feeling exhausted, you know, being on my own so much doing all this. And then when I'm in the studio and I'm talking to loads of people, of course I'm like getting really excited because this is just how my brain is wired. So I think it's good to remember that there shouldn't be like any stigmatism around sort of, you know, introverts being like, how do you do that? It's so overwhelming. But really it's like, it's completely different. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And it's that balance between having real deep, meaningful questions and then having some real, just curious, like I asked you the other day, who's your favorite Spice Girl? You know, and where do your questions come from?
So it comes from whenever I ask anyone anything, it normally comes from exactly what I want to know. So normally I want to know where people started and like where it all came from, because I'm a massive sort of believer in frequencies and alignment and sort of coming to a point where you go, oh my God, this just makes sense. And like how you get to that point. So when I'm interviewing successful people, I'm just obsessed. I'm like, where were you? How did you find that? What sort of awful things happened in your life to get you to realize that you need to take a different direction, you know? And like what connects us all and all the sort of things, you know, there's loss, there's sort of like, there's hope and there's sort of gratitude. And I just would love to know different people's formulas to try and like work out and establish and grow my own in that sense.
Yeah. I think it's, I think what you're referring to is that it's all in here, and all in here, it's just connected with that, isn't it? And, you know, I can go from any point of just really wanting to know why you are who you are, what experiences have made up your life, versus if you were a biscuit, what biscuit would you be?
It's got to be done. Questions you've got to ask people. It's important.
And that's a serious question. I'm asking you that. If you were a biscuit, which biscuit would you be?
That's so hard. I like all biscuits. I really do. I think it's so hard. There is this particular biscuit that is like outstanding. It's a McVitie's one, and it's got like chocolate on top, and it's got like a thin layer of caramel in the middle. It's spectacular. I've not had one for years because I'm not allowed them in the house because they just go in like seconds. So whenever I see them though, I'm like, yeah.
Other biscuits are available. And just how does one become a hand model? Like what was that by chance? Like, I'd love to know that story.
So I just told everyone I was one, and then phone started ringing. So again, it's like this whole winning mindset of like, oh, if someone like, if someone tells you you've got something that's good, and people are so quick to self-deprecate, aren't they? And that's like my biggest bugbear. I'm like, stop saying like because we're so British and it's so polite to be self-deprecating. It's like, no, it's not, because your subconscious is still listening and it doesn't have a sense of humor. So if you tell yourself you're not something, it will become more of what you're not. So if people are like, oh, you've got nice hands, I'd be like, thank you so much, I'm a hand model. Or like, I would sort of, be doing commercial jobs straight out of drama school, and they're like, oh, can you just touch this button? I'm like, well, have you seen my hands? Because they charge more. And then they're like, oh, actually, you have got nice hands. Oh, actually, well, we'll tell this other guy who needs a hand model, and then, and then it's kind of like word spread. So I genuinely just sort of started telling people I was one, and then got the calls. Yeah, it was a very funny moment actually when I got a call like, hi, I heard you're a hand model, what's your day rate? I was like, I don't have one. I've literally made this up. So I just remember like calling my dad, like, Dad, what's my day rate? And he was just laughing, like, can't believe this happened. This is ridiculous. I was like, oh.
That is amazing. What makes a good hand?
Just perfection. So, you've got to have good bone structure, first and foremost. Sort of like an even skin tone, straight fingers. A lot of people come to me and they're like, have I got nice hands? And I'm like, you look like you've broken every finger. No.
Netball fingers.
Yeah. Savage game. So so just sort of like, and also the ability to completely tell everyone you are one and just go for it and not even think about it. Like if you genuinely think you've got nice hands, there is no set route. It's the weirdest industry in the world. So just tell everyone until you get a job.
I love that. You strike me as someone that takes yourself very seriously and yet not seriously at all.
It's a really good description, I think.
That's amazing. And you're using your vocal gifts, your vocal talents, and you've started various other ventures. What are they?
Yeah, so I've just released a how to be a voiceover actor course, actually, which had another 5-star review this morning. So
very
great
nice.
for that. So lovely. Again, like that's what it is, isn't it? It's like when you've got something, and obviously you're like, oh, I could probably make an income off this, but at the same time, I'm actually more passionate about what I'm sharing. And then when you get reviews through like that, you're just like, it's so amazing, and it makes you feel it's so wonderful. So I do that, and I do lots of voiceovers, mainly for hilarious sort of corporate clients, and I genuinely can't understand what I'm saying 90% of the time. I'm just reading the script like hoping it sounds normal. Lots of bits and bobs, mainly radio and stuff like that. So yeah.
And you've released a podcast, the Fianna?
Oh my God, yes. Of course, yes. So the Fianna Show. So Fianna is a group for pioneering sort of entrepreneurial women, and the girl that runs it was like, "I'd love you to head up the podcast." So I head up the podcast. This is a while ago now, but yeah. So I head that up, and I had some amazing chats because obviously the Queen's Gambit came out, and I spoke to the female leading chess champion. It was like last year now. But yeah, I thought how relevant. So I got the podcast back, and it's just been great to share with people because chess is now fashionable in that sense, because of Netflix. But yes, that's amazing. But I've got plans to release my own podcast as well, and just talk to a lot of people with a lot of mad jobs like myself. So yeah.
That's amazing. What where do you take your inspiration from?
Learning. So a lot of my inspiration for growth mindset comes from the bad times. Like every single time you feel sad, every single time something doesn't go your way, every single time something makes you feel off, those are times that when you're really down, crying, frustrated, whatever, you have to just shout, learning. And it cuts through it. And then you go, okay, cool, what am I learning? And then it becomes a fun game. And then it becomes this game of like, cool, I'm learning something. What is it? Okay, why does that affect me like this? what are they saying from their point of view? Like really try and understand where the other person's coming from. Really try and get into their shoes, because that's when we learn the most about ourselves. It's because nothing is never about us. It's always about the other person. So if we can kind of like delve into the other person's world a little bit more, we have a better understanding for ourselves, I think. Yeah.
My equivalent of that word learning is I say good. And I'm like, before I know it, I've said the word good, and my brain's like, what are you on about, mate?
Yeah.
There ain't nothing good about this. And then because you said it, your brain's like, something's not right here. You need to start finding the good. Start finding the good.
Yeah, I love that. I do that with grateful as well. Like if I've got thoughts that are like, no, this is like everything's going wrong kind of thing, just say grateful, because it's scientifically proven. If you say grateful, you cannot fire negative emotions in your mind, because gratitude always wins over negativity, which I think is stunning.
You talked about vibrations and energies, and what do you do to make sure that your energy is high and good?
I surround myself with frequency raisers. It's like, and it's like a 101 for me. I've got my core people who absolutely lift me up, and they've got, you know, the same kind of values as me. They're kind of on the same kind of journey, all ambitious, predominantly women who just want the best. So if you're having a moment where you're like, oh my God, and I just don't feel off, or I've got a load of questions and I'm like, is this the right thing? One call and your frequency's up again. The other person can see you for your higher self, and they, you know, you give them a lot of inspiration. So they're just like, what do you want about? No. Remember who you are. Remember how I see you. Remember what you are capable of. I think those people in your life are just absolute gold dust. So, yeah.
You just used the word higher self, and various people in my close network, they name their higher self. Does your higher self have a name?
Really? That's such a good idea. No, I don't. No. I should name. I don't know. I feel like I've got an image of her, and I know her, and I see her, and I am her some days, but some days I'm not. But yeah, that's a really good way to tap into it, isn't it?
Yeah, it's my good friend, shout out to Esther McCann. She's law of attraction coach, and her higher self is called Tatiana. And it's just, we have these interesting conversations where she's like, oh, Tatiana was having a word with me, and it just becomes that almost you talk about encouragement, and the other side of that can be accountability. Is that you know who you are. It's like Mufasa's coming out of the sky and he's remember who you are. And yeah, I take a lot of inspiration from Disney. Does Disney do it for you?
That on your podcast, there's lots of Disney references, which I fully appreciate.
Yeah. Do you associate with any Disney characters?
Do you know what? I don't, only because I've been doing a lot of, well, not like female ones anyway, but only because I've been doing so much research recently into like feminism, and like looking back at the original old school stuff for the princesses, I'm like, girls, you are not teaching us the right thing. We do not wait for men. We do not wait to be chosen. I feel like the princesses are giving girls a bad rep sometimes. But yeah.
I agree with you. And that's why I love films like Moana. Like my daughter, she's 5. She's a mini Moana, headstrong, in nobody telling her to do anything she don't want to do.
Love that.
And you know, okay, feminism, let's go there. What does that mean to you? What's important to you about that?
I think it's at the moment, because I've like really just started learning about it. Like feminism is such a term that has been, it's so difficult because so many people have so many opinionated views on it, and you know, it's like, but we are all feminists, and like, you know, we can all be this thing. But really, I've just been reading loads of books and just being like, oh, this is how society's been working this whole time. Oh, I see. Like as a woman, I genuinely don't have the kind of same kind of rights maybe as a man, not rights necessarily, but you know, that kind of like social sort of stature as a male. And I was like, this is just absolutely fascinating, and it makes a lot of things make sense. So I'm kind of just like on a journey of learning at the moment, and finding my place with it,
I think the point I've come to is that we can raise people up without having to put other people down.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's feminism, race, demographics, disability, like just, and I think that's an ego-based thing. I think we can raise people up without having to put other people down. And you know, I love the thing that you're doing, particularly with the podcast as well, is just that put good females on a platform and raise them high. And I think, you know, I've spoken with many people that there's something about women. I don't want to generalize too much, but they're more than capable, yet they hold themselves back. Because whether that be mindset, whether that be society, culture, and anything that we can do, I can do, this platform can do to encourage. And yeah, I love the energy that you're bringing to the conversation, and but not just that. For it's just a spirit of giving. You know, what is that? Is that a conscious thing? Is that a heart led thing, or is that just emanating from who you are?
Yeah, I think I love human connection so much that I think it genuinely radiates from like within me.
Mm,
And
mm,
like obviously everything that I've learned in the sense of, being kind, I think. And I think there's a kindness in me that genuinely wants other people to shine so much. And I want to nurture other people, and I want things just to be the best and the most fun. And I get a lot
mm.
of sort of ridicule for that. I get a lot of like people like, oh, like, you know, not on that. And they kind of see me as a bit like, are you even real? Like, are you, is this even authentic? But I'm like, genuinely, I just love joy so much. So why not always try and like reach another level of it, or try and find a way around? Or like, I've got like this strict sort of policy where I don't queue. Don't queue. I hate queues. So my way of not queuing is to find a fun route to get in somewhere however else I can. Normally it's,
Yeah.
backstage, or like sneaking in another door, or like just, do you know what I mean? Like just being like that. So I think if I use that policy in my life, we don't have to wait around. We can cut straight to the joy. Let's just
Mm.
get straight in there and just like have a great time. I think it's so
How
important.
how terribly anti-British of you.
I know. There's so much of that coming up, isn't there? It's like,
Yeah.
don't like queuing. I don't
Yeah.
like old school Disney princesses, like self-deprecation.
I love it. I love it. This is great. And I think people need to hear that. And I think sometimes leadership is just about going first, being brave enough to stand in your truth and going first. And it gives permission for people to follow.
Yeah. That's a really interesting thought, actually, because it's so funny because I going first, it's that brings up a lot of stuff for me, because I kind of will, with the kind of kind nature that I have, I kind of will always sort of serve people first.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been realizing on my sort of journey recently, I'm like, no, you do have to put that life jacket on yourself first, don't you? And like that's something that I'm learning at the moment a lot more of. Like,
Yeah.
no one is in control of your happiness. You are
Yep.
in control of your
Yep.
happiness. And no matter how much someone can upset you, or no matter how, like, something doesn't go your way, ultimately it's really not their fault. It's your fault with however you react. So we can either stay in victim mode sometimes, or we can just, get to growth mode and be like, okay, doesn't serve me. I do have to keep reminding and checking myself to like go first sometimes.
Yeah. I that analogy of the face mask on a plane, do yourself before you kill. I was never going to do that. There was not a chance I was ever going to do that. It made no sense to me. But it's not until you burn out, you get burned, or something's compromised, that you go, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. And that's what we talk about in Always Better Than Yesterday, around first leading yourself before you lead others. And you've mentioned so clearly around, your passions, your devotions, your the things that you love. You've mentioned your values and the people. And I think there's a lot of leaders out there that suffer that burnout, or that loss of identity, because they haven't created that identity.
Yeah. That's really interesting. So how do you mean? Like sort of like they sort of maybe took shortcuts in a sense?
Well, I heard something this morning that said, if you don't know who you are, the external world around you will tell you who you are.
Yeah.
And that
That's
is when people get lost. Who am I? What do I stand for? What am I good at? If you don't know the answer to those three questions, the world will tell you what you're good at or what you're not good at. The world will tell you who you are to me in certain situations. And you'll always be everything to everyone else, but nothing for yourself.
That's really interesting, isn't it? I love that, because I've got a huge sort of I was having a chat with a friend recently, and we were discussing how we are what other people perceive us to be. So if you are like this really fun, vibrant person, you know, people always be like, oh, you're that really fun, vibrant person. It's like, oh yeah, I am that. But then at the same time, you're right with the whole sense of like, if you don't know who you are, people will show you, because people come into our lives because they are mirrors. We have constant mirrors showing up. We have constant tests and people that pop in just for a couple of months, just to remind you what you've not quite healed yet. And if you need to do that work because you're still getting triggered by certain stuff and it's a pattern. And unfortunately, you can't break the pattern unless you work on it.
And here's the thing, you talked consciously about the group of people that lift you up with the same values. Imagine you had a group of people around you that didn't have the same values. That uplifting process is going to be very different. Wow. And for many, it's what holds people back. You said the word kindness. And unfortunately, last year, there was the tragedy of Caroline Flack. And, you know, one of her last posts was about, if you can be anything, just be kind. And everyone was like, yeah, let's everyone be kind. 2020, let's be kind. And then 6 weeks later, we're punching people in supermarkets over toilet roll.
Oh my God, yeah. Awful.
How do we restart? How do we reset? How do we create more kindness?
I think kindness comes from a place of stillness, because you can't, if you're walking down the street, you're busy, you've got a million things to do, someone barges into you, your quickest, you know, you're not going to be like, thank you. You're going to be like, oh my God. So you've got to, I just genuinely believe that kindness is a practice as much as, you know, playing a sport is a practice, as much as meditating is a practice, all these things. You have to genuinely practice kindness, and it starts with yourself. So if you are constantly looking in the mirror and you're digging yourself out and you're like, this isn't all right, I need to change this, then you're going to look at the people and be like, they need to change that. They need to, like, there's no room for it. Again, our subconscious is listening. So whatever you're repeating to yourself, your subconscious is growing. So I think that it starts at home. Start practicing kindness with yourself, and it will genuinely just shine out your face. What's that quote? It's like, the thoughts that you have will shine out your face like sunbeams or something. What is that quote? It's a really good one.
That's a new quote. That's yours. Take that.
I think it's really famous. I'll find it. I'll send it to you. But yeah, if you're kind, sunbeams comes right out.
I prefer your quote. I'm going to use that one forever and a day now. It's just shine out your face. That's amazing. What does the words always better than yesterday mean to you?
Always better than yesterday. Always better than yesterday triggers me a little bit in the sense that I'm like, do I have to be better than yesterday? Yesterday's quite a good day. Am I all right? Will I be better tomorrow? But at the same time, I know that today I'm going to put one foot in front of the other, and I have a chance to be a better version of myself if I want to be, taking the pressure off. But also I've got a new day to learn something new. I've got a new day to unlearn something about myself. I've got a new day to ask a million more questions about a million things that can help me go a little bit deeper and learn a little bit more about myself. So of course I can be better today than I was yesterday, because I'm always learning and I'm always growing. And that is so exciting.
I love the fact you raised the trigger, you know, because I don't think you'll be alone. I think there'll be people out there. I was having a conversation last night with my wife. She in the early days and still now feels overly burdened by the sense of being always why. And you've hit the nail on the head. It's simply an intention. It's simply a call to action. And if you don't want to be, don't be, you know. And then the flip side of that is being a human being. We are learning beings. You know, you touch something hot, you learn not to do it again. You speak to someone that you don't like, you learn not to speak to them in a certain way. And it's just an awakening of we're always better than yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. Love that.
I've really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you so much for connecting. How can people connect with you?
On Instagram mainly. That's where I like to hang out. It's my little corner of the internet that I like to give a lot of joy as well under all my posts. So that's at Samantha Clinch. And I'm really only on there. I don't really do Twitter. So yeah, catch me on Insta. I
don't do Twitter either. I'm curious to know why you don't do it.
Oh, it's just a lot of, it's too negative. It's just like when people go there, and I'm just like, no, let's go to Instagram where we see pretty things and like, you can modify it so you get all like the best content with like the most, positive things on there. Yeah. It's
mindless negativity veiled in free speech is the way I feel about Twitter.
Well said. So well said. Yeah, exactly. And it's just how you get your refunds quicker, isn't it? So people just on there trying to get the refunds.
Yeah. Or maybe their song requests on Hoxton Radio.
Oh yeah. Oh God, yeah. I do actually get a lot of people on there for that. But yeah, and tune into Hoxton. I'm on Friday actually. I'm gonna go and pre-record my show just after this. So yeah.
We haven't really touched about the pandemic. Has that affected? Was that hard work trying to sort that out? Were you quite able to respond?
It's a lot. Pandemic is a lot.
Mm.
I live alone and I'm an extrovert, so I'm just like, this is nuts. But do you know what I mean? Like, I have genuinely learned so much about myself, and like, it is a gift in that sense, but also like it's a lot. Day to day, you really just have to take it day by day, and it's very difficult for every single person in every single sort of different circumstance. But it's allowed me to like, you know, research into therapies that I wanted to do, and I've like had those now, and I've like transformed in different ways that I didn't know I could, and like I've really sort of used the time to like really go in, and I think that is just such a gift, and I just have to keep kind of like remembering that and be grateful every time I'm like, I want to see my mates, to be like grateful. Think about, you know, what you're learning. It's time to slow down, be still. So, yeah.
I love that. And one thing, this little model over my shoulder is a bit of a gobstopper. We start from within, the heart, the mind, and then the strengths that we have. And I've been using phrase like we've got the heart, the mind, the hands. And you literally do have a heart, mind, and hands. Like you've got the full business.
Oh my God, I do. I love that. Oh my God, I actually do. Stunning.
Amazing. I'd love you to leave us with a final thought from your good self.
Oh, a final thought. Just sort of to go over everything that we've said. Kindness is key. Kindness starts from within. Remember that your subconscious doesn't have a sense of humor. So if you are one to self-deprecate, be careful, because it is funny to an extent, but not when, you know, and when those patterns come back, when the bad cycles come back, really start to ask why. Because, you know, there's a lesson to be learned inside everything, the good and the bad, mainly the bad. So know that if you're being tested on something, if you're feeling really down about something, you genuinely have everything inside you to cope and move through it and become better than you were yesterday. So
love that. Mic drop, but I need to look, how do I?
Oh, that's good. That's it.
Is it?
And then you like just make sure everything's really straight, kind of like gentle, like without any, you know.
Yeah, I've got quite soft hands. I don't do DIY or anything like that. They are quite soft.
Amazing. Well, I'll give you a call if I need one.
I was about to say, maybe I'll just start branding myself as a soft male hand model.
Exactly. We do anything we want.
Amazing. Peace and love. Thanks for your time.
Thanks so much. Bye.